What's going on, everybody? It's your host, the Sports Moose, coming straight at you from the Sports Heap Man Cave, episode 10 of the Thunderdome Puckcast. Some great stuff on tap here tonight. Rare bye week for the Lightning. Of course, every NHL team getting a bye week. Lightning finally make it to theirs, coming hot off a 10-game winning streak, and then beating LA and Winnipeg while dropping one to the Wild. We'll get into that. We'll look at our Central Division out in the Western Conference, our Central Division friends, to see how that division's doing. Definitely some surprises there, especially at this point of the season. Do some Bolts weekly recap. We'll go over that Kings, that Wild, and that Jets game. And then, of course, hot or not, some NHL hot takes, and we'll finish up with what's coming up for the Bolts. Hit that intro. Hope you're having a great evening. Welcome to the Thunderdome Puckcast. It's your host, Moose, with the Sports Heap. Hope you're having a great night. Got a fun show for you tonight. I'm really excited for Hot or Not. We're going to look at some of the most recent jerseys to come out and a few good NHL hot takes. Wanted to get more in depth into what's going on with the latest trend in improving your NHL team, firing your head coach, even though he may be performing pretty well. We'll talk about some of the latest NHL Seattle news and look into what else is going on in the NHL. So, again, if you're a first-time listener, it's episode 10. It's about second, third week of January in the NHL season. Lightning finally getting to their bye week, so much needed time off, some recovery time. They had kind of a mini bye week back after the global series, after their home and home against Buffalo in Sweden. They had almost a week off, I think, for travel and whatnot, which I guess had them behind the 8 ball for games played. They've caught up with the rest of the NHL for the most part now. I think 2 games at hand with Boston right now, so we're in theory only 2 points behind. Should we win both of those games in hand against the Bruins, I think I'm getting to the point where I think I'm gonna throw some futures money on the Lightning to take the division. We'll look at some statistics. That most of our focus will be, of course, on the Central Division today, but I think as we get into hot takes, we'll look at some of the performances of the NHL as of late, and even when you look at just statistics-wise and the hardcore analysis done in NHL and statistics that are available, Lightning are really right now far and away outplaying everyone, especially over the last month or month and a half of the NHL season. So maybe not the most timely time for the bye week to come, terms of cooling them off or hopefully getting ready for a West Coast swing. So hopefully that doesn't mean rust and the usual trouble we have playing out west, but we'll see. Let's hop into the action talking about the Central Division, especially with one of the upcoming games for the Lightning going to be over in Dallas. Game I probably can't make it to this year. Man, why would they schedule that game on a Monday, right? I think it's gonna be pretty tough for me to get out there next week when they're here in town. I usually try to make it out to the Dallas games. I'm based out of Austin, Texas, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it this year. Nevertheless, I'm sure it'll be a great game, and let's take a look at the Central Division. Let's bring you up. If you're watching us on YouTube, of course, pre-recorded shows or live shows, we usually post those out on Facebook and Twitter when we're going live. If you want to join us right now, pre-recorded show for episode 10 of the Puckcast. And of course, you can listen to us, if you're listening to us now, on your favorite podcasting platform, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Really easy to find us, and now on iHeartRadio as well. So make sure you're subscribing, leave us a review, give us 5 stars, give us 2 stars. Any stars we'll take. And of course on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit likes on our videos as we build up our subscriber fan base. So let's switch over to the second screen if you're able to watch on YouTube. If not, I'll try my best to describe what's going on. Let's look here at team statistics. We've got the Central Division highlighted, of course. Far and away the best team this year out of the Central, and honestly probably far and away one of the best teams in the NHL. It's going to be your Stanley Cup champions, defending Stanley Cup champions, St. Louis Blues. And I mean, other than the Capitals, the Blues have to be a favorite to be the first repeat champions since the Penguins did it, right? I don't think we've had a repeat champion since then. A couple years back, man, it might be more than a couple years back, but back when the Penguins did it, I think they're our last repeat champion. So maybe this will be the first year we see that with the St. Louis Blues in a long time. Let's look at the standings, of course. Kind of similar here out here in the Atlantic. Blues at 68, Avalanche at 62, both even on the games played for the year. Dallas coming in at 58. They would be in the third spot and take the playoff position spot, or the playoff spot, to play the Avalanche currently. And then you have the underperforming Winnipeg Jets. They've lost their last 3. I don't know if doesn't look like we have a last 10 here, but they've lost their last 3, including a big 7-1 destruction at the hands of the Lightning, which we'll get to in short order. Blackhawks, a little bit of a resurgence. They've been in the basement for most of the year. Right now, making a run and only 4 points out of that third slot. Don't look now. Those Blackhawks are coming. There's even rumors that they may be buyers at the trade deadline that's coming up next month. We'll keep an eye out on those Blackhawks. They've been playing fairly well. When you're looking at your statistics, their strength of schedule has been a little bit harder than average. Really interesting, though. They're what we call the simple rating system is kind of a combination of goal differential and whatever strength of schedule calculations are being done. And they're at a minus 0.9, but right now the teams around them are even worse. I mean, Minnesota Wild, other than the win against the Lightning, right now at a minus 1.7, and with 0 being your run of the mill average. Preds are at minus 0.5 or at minus 0.1. So Preds have been playing a little bit better as of late, but again, Jets with the big minus 0.12. So really, they've been struggling as of late. Predators, I think, are probably the biggest disappointment here. I mean, I don't know if anyone expected the Wild to be a playoff team. Maybe I didn't expect them to be in the basement this year. But the Predators, with the talent they have on that team, and this is a team I want to look more closely in terms of their team statistics. They have some goal scorers on that team. And we just don't know what's going on. Of course, some of the big news coming with Ryan Ellis being put on IR. Big loss on the defensive front. Also, Cody Sissons a little bit before the new year on IR. Really, timetables week to week at this point. Just kind of looking here, game results. I really love this stat here, or at least this visualization of the data, because you're able to see margin of victory. Lots of red bars versus green bars for the Nashville Predators. When you're looking at team statistics, their penalty kill right now is way below average, 73%. The average is 80%. and they're below average also on the power play. So really, I think the big story, and we talked about it slightly when we were talking about Laviolette not kind of getting a tough break. Their goaltending has been subpar. I think Juicy Saros and Pecorine both. I think team goaltending is under 90% for save percentage. That's just not going to get the job done. It doesn't matter how many goals you score. If you give it about 4 a game, you better be playing for the Washington Capitals or I guess this year the Florida Panthers, who are the number 1 goal scoring team in the league. So I think a big who's not hot is going to be the Nashville Predators. Let's look at some of those scoring statistics right now. Their leader at 48 points, Roman Josi, and most of those coming on assist. Really, I think Philippe Forsberg, a little bit of a disappointing season with 16 goals. And I think it's bad news when Roman Josi's second on your team in goal scoring. Obviously, world-class defender. But when you have names like Kyle Turris, who's 6-13 and a -4, and you're paying him some money to score some goals. Oh, we got Pecorine on the score sheet after he scored the goalie goal. That's great to see. He's outscoring Dan Hamhuis. Don't look now. Pecorine with 3 points on the board. You're paying Kyle Turris some money. Matt Duchene, 10-21, underachieving, unfortunately, for the Nashville Predators. Even Victor Arvidsson, they should be expecting more from this team. So I think you can probably support just looking at what Laviolette was getting out of this team before his firing to support it, I guess. But yep, Nashville Predators, I would say, biggest disappointment of the Central. And let's see. Let's look at league leaders and where we can find any Central players when you're looking at goal scoring. Actually, David Pasternak, of course, talked about him last week as we were looking at our division, the Atlantic Division. Yeah, McKinnon's having a strong year, 72 points. It looks like it should be top 5, right? Top 3 for McKinnon in points at 72. So he's right behind McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. In terms of points, Patty Kane's up there as well. And Mark Scheifele, not a surprise. And let's round out with David Perron, the highest scorer with St. Louis. In terms of raw goal scoring, McKinnon, again, with 30. You're going to see both Kyle Connor, strong year, 24-23 for him. And we talked about Scheifele. And then drops down a little bit. David Perron leading the way for the Blues, 21-28 for David Perron. Kubliak's a name I've heard a little bit coming out of the Chicago, or Kubalik, the Czech winger. Is this his first year? I think it might be this rookie year for him. Yes, rookie year for him. 24-year-old, as kind of on a hot streak the last 5 games, right? 7 goals in his last 5 games for a total 21. So definitely breakout. Might be a candidate for the Rookie of the Year award. So we'll be on the lookout for that for Dominic Kubalik. Kubalik. That's a name I've been hearing in hockey circles in terms of performance. Let's look a little bit more closely before we move on to our second topic. Let's look at the Blues. Of course, they're the gold standard right now in the Central Division. Let's get back out of skaters. And again, special love for hockeyreference.com. Such a great repository of information. Blues, once again, I love looking at the margin of victory. Lots more green here for the Blues. Tarasenko, yeah. That was a huge injury at the beginning of the year. 5 months. So puts him on track to to make that final run to secure playoff spots, right? Hopefully we'll see him end of March. Maybe they'll just give him the rest of the regular season off, and he'll make his return for the playoffs. Parayko's always a tough loss. And that was recently too. He's week to week with his injury. They're right now listed as an upper body injury, so that will definitely hurt the defensive depth a little bit for the Blues. Stats wise, right now, again, simple rating system, right above average. A little bit of a tougher schedule per the strength of schedule. Power plays above average and penalty kills above average. That's gonna be. See, I love the shooting percentage and save percentage. You definitely want to be over 100 on that. And we talked about Perron having a strong year. So is Ryan O'Reilly, Braden Shen, Pietrangelo, the usual suspects. Nice to see Oscar Sundqvist having a solid year as well. Great performer last year in the playoffs, and he looks like he's maintaining that performance. So that's been a little bit of a look for you in the Central Division. I fully expect it's going to be St. Louis winning that division. Close second. Maybe the Avalanche give them a little bit of a run. And probably Dallas securing that third position. Not sure if a wild card is going to get out of the Central this year, especially as we review the Pacific next week. It's a pretty tight race. Basically, first through sixth place in that division, all within 1 to 2, 3 points, I think, total if you're looking top to bottom. So, it's the Bolts weekly recap, and let's start in game order. And that'll be our game against the LA Kings. Get that Kings logo on the screen. And this was kind of a weird game, right? We just had our 10-game winning streak snapped. Tough game against New Jersey. Louis Domingue gets his revenge. And again, the 10-game win streak comes to an end. A couple days off, get home. Got an easy one against basement dwellers out of the Pacific, the Kings, right? Not right. Of course, the Lightning always seem to find a way to give us a little bit of a struggle, especially the beginning of the game coming out a little bit flat. And to be quite honest with you, LA really carried the pace for most of this game. Pretty physical, 30 hits overall. Outshot the Lightning 41-38. Bulk of the Lightning shots really coming in the latter half of the game when they started taking control. LA went up quickly, 2-0. Goals by Jeff Carter, Kyle Clifford, a couple throwback names there. Lightning responded quickly within 4 minutes. Back-to-back goals within about a minute and a half from Killorn and Stamkos. Killorn 19th, and happy to see him hit the 20 mark for the first time in his career later in this week. This one went to a shootout. Bolts exchanged goals. Dustin Brown on the board and Kucherov closing it out in a great empty net goal off the face-off. Just an absolute laser past Jonathan Quick. Some pretty good action overtime. Went to a shootout, and I believe it was Vasilevsky making the shootout save to secure the victory. So, great game against the Kings. Again, kind of a sluggish start. Guess was to be expected after a little bit of a layoff and coming back after losing your first game after a 10-game winning streak. Vasi played well for the most part. Again, 35 saves on 38 shots, over that 90% threshold, 91-92% threshold we like to see for success. Face-off circle was pretty even, and really a penalty-filled game. I think LA scored one power play goal. Bolts are still, I think, 5th in the league in the power play, 85% or so. So if you remember, massive improvement. I think we were panicking at the beginning of the season. We're like 27th for the first month, kind of high 60s, low 70s I think the coaching staff has done a great job to get that average up. Moving on to our game against Minnesota, then of course we had our usual stinker. Not sure, we just always struggle in Minnesota. It's amazing. One of my good hockey buddies used to live up in St. Paul, and it would seem like every time the Lightning were in town, they were just getting worked by the Wild, even when they weren't great. So, just kind of crazy how, again, the Lightning always seem to find a way to play to the level at some of our weaker rivals or weaker opponents. And it was close for the most part. They pulled away a little bit in the second. Just some tough breaks for McElhinney, who started this game. Kuch with 2 more goals. That puts him at 3 at this point. I think he ended up with 5 with 2 more against the Jets. Really great defensive showing from Ryan Suter, who's still a household name up in Minnesota. Don't hear his name so much anymore, especially after the big trade out of Montreal. Of course, Alex Killorn having a decent game. Kind of a lower volume shot game, a little bit tentative and mostly defensive. Again, really the difference was just better goaltending from Killorn. Again, McElhinney giving up 3 goals on 23 shots. Hits a little bit. Minnesota kind of controlled the pace there. Bolts giving up 1 power play goal and scoring a power play goal. Bolts, I think, are 3rd on the power play in the league. Dominating the faceoff circle, which is always a great indicator. However, just, again, got to make those key saves, and we've been getting interesting goaltending from our backup goalie. Definitely not. I think we got spoiled last year a little bit with Domingue's performance. And, I guess McElhinney's performing as expected. He's a game or 2 under 500. Save percentage hovering right at 90%. Wish we could get that goals against average below 3, however. Then came the big one. Big game against the Jets as the Bolts ride into the bye week. Big 7-1 performance, took a 5-0 lead halfway through the second. Carter Verhaeghe getting on the score sheet again. Kuch with 2 more goals, getting him up to 22. Killorn got his 20th. This is a Cirelli hat trick also. Another hat trick for the Bolts. We know Verhaeghe had one a week or 2 ago. Cirelli getting his first NHL hat trick this year. He had that about 3rd period. Bolts going up 6-1 and Killorn closing it out. 20th goal of the year. I'm hoping he gets to 30 this year. That would be an amazing accomplishment for Killorn. 20th goal, 7-1 victory for the Bolts. Just poor goaltending from Hellebuck. And he got pulled and the backup came in. Vassy had a strong game, 30 saves on 31 shots. And Winnipeg actually outshooting the Lightning 31-26. Faceoffs were even. I think there were no power play goals, right? I think the Bolts went 0 for 2, 0 for 1 on the power play. So out of all even strength goals for the Lightning, 7-1 over the Winnipeg Jets. Physical game, both teams near 30 hits. It's the way we like to play it. I really like to see the physical brand of hockey, especially as we near the playoffs. We just can't make the same mistakes as last year in taking our opponent for granted. Really liking the fact that it's really looking like, as you see below the scroll, Florida has moved into the playoff spot that would play the Lightning right now. Wouldn't that be amazing? I'm telling you, it's going to happen this year. Our first Panthers-Lightning playoff series. Let's move to our NHL hot takes. I want to talk a little bit, I think, more so about the firing of Gerard Gallant, because we talked about it briefly, kind of on hot or not. Honorable mention is firing your coach the thing to do now to ensure success. And we've seen a little bit of a bump we've certainly seen it from the Predators, a little bit of a performance bump. think they hired the guy from New Jersey. And it seems like the Devils also had a little bit of a performance bump. They took down the Lightning and the Capitals, I think one behind the other last week. So is this the way to get your team's attention? We haven't seen it so much in San Jose. DeBauer was fired, and now he's coaching the. Is he coaching the? Was he coaching Las Vegas? He's either coaching Las Vegas or he's coaching Nashville. I forget where Peter DeBauer ended up. I think he ended up in. Don't quote me. Las Vegas. I know we talked about it last week. Nevertheless, yeah, Las Vegas, because I was angry that they hired Gallant and then we get like retread DeBauer. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but I mean he just got fired from San Jose and he's available, gets to take over a playoff team in the same division, basically, right? So I don't understand the Gerard Gallant firing, and I know I'm repeating a little bit from episode 9, but the only head coach you've had in franchise history takes an expansion team to the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, basically a band of misfits gets Marchessault to overperform. Someone that was expendable off the Lightning, and I think he was plucked off the Panthers roster, right? I think he was selected in the draft. Resurgence of Marc-Andre Fleury being a difference maker in goal. Getting so many other players to overperform. I mean, maybe, I don't know if the expectations from the front office were the Golden Knights should be far and away destroying this, just owning the division, especially with some of the turmoil at the bottom. Kings are looking like they need to go into rebuild mode. Probably need to have a few of their key players start to consider retirement or moving on. Ducks are kind of stuck in neutral. Sharks are stuck in neutral. They're not making the playoffs this year. So this is really an opportunity for the Vegas Golden Knights to take a stranglehold of the division, and maybe they should have, given their roster and some of the play that they've been getting. And it's just a tight division. I think those teams are very evenly matched. Arizona's probably exceeding expectations this year. I think I would have penciled them in as a playoff team, maybe a wild card team, but they could potentially win the division this year. They're getting great goaltending. It was Antti Ranta, I think, was the name I was trying to think of last week, along with first or second year goalie that they got going on this year, who just got injured. So I know they're hurting a little bit on the goalie front. So just not understanding the culture that has taken over, where it's results now, and if you're not getting the results in 2 years, we're just gonna fire you. There's plenty of NHL retreads available to take your job, I guess. I mean, I kind of get it with Laviolette. It's been his calling card, right? Message gets old in Philadelphia, message gets old in Nashville, and able to get to those teams to a level of success. I mean, I guess he took the Preds to a Stanley Cup final, President's Trophy. I mean, it's tough, and we talked about it, reflected on it a little bit last week with. We were calling for John Cooper's head, and I guess we need to give JBB, Jonathan Brisebois, Julian Brisebois, kind of a thank you for keeping his head and trusting Cooper. We committed to the system. I think the players are committed to the system, and stats definitely show that the Bolts are playing exceptional hockey. Next hot take. Getting excited for NHL in Seattle. I think it was disappointing that it was a 3-year waiting period. I know that they've been trying to drum up support and excitement. Todd Lewicki, the former CEO of the Lightning, during the turnaround with Vinnick taking over the Seattle squad. Ronnie Francis have his Whalers jersey, named as GM of the team. So a lot of excitement going on in Seattle. latest news in terms of team name should be revealed around the All-Star game or break. So only a few short weeks away from knowing finally the Seattle name. Uh, Rumors that it's going to be the Sockeyes. There's a short list that came out that didn't have the totems or the Kraken, which would have been a sweet name. But I'm liking Sockeyes. Sockeyes would be sweet. I saw Cougars on there, which I thought that was a Washington State thing. I'm not sure why we would want that as a professional sports team name. Emeralds would be really unique. Maybe bring back the Mets, Metropolitans over in Seattle. I would love to see an awesome fish, a sockeye, as the logo. I guess some other big news is construction has finally begun on Key Arena, and I think is that the old home of the Supersonics, a really old, I guess government-funded stadium from before. Really unique plan, and if you haven't really looked at what's going on, I was able to see this in person when I went up to Seattle for Tampa Bay Bucks Seattle Seahawks game. You're able to see Key Arena from the Space Needle, which was a pretty cool experience. But lots of construction going on under the iconic roof. So they've preserved kind of a wavy roof that the Key Arena has. Support structures in place, and they've pretty much dug a giant hole in the ground because they're going to build down into the ground and have a bowl for the arena. So it's almost like Big House, where you're walking in from the top of the stadium, coming down. I guess they did that at Little Caesars, right? I think there's a little bit of a building into the ground at Little Caesars Arena. So kind of the same thing going on in Seattle. They're hoping to have that done by summer of next year to get into operations just a little bit after the first draft and the expansion draft for the Seattle franchise coming up in spring of 2021 or summer of 2021 for the Seattle soon-to-be named team. Last item on Hot Takes, it's the man, the myth, the legend, Alexander Ovechkin jumping into the top 10 all-time in goal scoring. I think he's tied with Stevie Yzerman. There's a good chance he could get into the top 6, jump over the next few names on the list by the end of this year, especially if he's going to have another 50-goal campaign. There's a good shot he could. I never thought Gretzky would ever get caught. I mean, obviously, overall points is never going to get caught, and it would be something if someone ever even got within sniffing distance of his career assist record. Ovi, I think, can take down the goal record, number one scorer overall. He's got maybe 200 more goals to go. Does he have 4 more 50-goal seasons left in him? Maybe a couple 40-goal seasons left in him? I don't know, but congrats to Ovi, everyone's favorite villain slash lovable Russian. You love seeing him happy. As much as he was a division rival for a long time, it was great to see him win the cup and just really be excited for the city of Washington, D.C. So hopefully we'll see some history in the making in the upcoming years with Ovi approaching Gretzky's record. Let's go over to Hot or Not. Apologize for our podcast listeners. There's a little bit of a visual Hot or Not. We're looking at some of the most recent jerseys that have been announced, so make sure to look these puppies up on your Google image search and see if you agree with me with Hot or Not. And the first one I have up is the dark All-Star Game jersey. Apparently these were inspired by some old designs. Again, it's very, very basic. Basically just a black shirt or a white shirt or a white sweater with 5 parallel lines, with the rings corresponding on gray rings corresponding on the sleeves, and just the giant respective team logo on the front. Little plain. I think I'm gonna rate this no good. I'm gonna go with not. No good. Not hot here for the All-Star Game jerseys. I don't know how they've compared to the ones recently. I mean, even last year's were a little bit disappointing. Out in San Jose, kind of like they kind of did it looked like an aquarium type of theme, and I think the jerseys were like recycled or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if that was an MLS thing that they had recycled jerseys with materials made from recycled materials, but I got the Lightning one up. It looks okay, but I think for me, just too plain for an All-Star jersey. He's gonna have some pizzazz, and he should have some actual stars on it, right? So a big not hot for me on this year's All-Star jerseys. We didn't talk about the Winter Classic too much. A little bit on our break period. Great game against the Nashville Predators and Dallas Stars. One I wish I could have made. I wish I could have made the trip to the Cotton Bowl. Couldn't believe it. They sold that out in less than an hour. And, man, those fans did not disappoint. 70 or 80,000 fans filling the Cotton Bowl. And actually a pretty nice contingent of Nashville Predators fans in their trademark yellow or gold. We got the Dallas Stars Winter Classic jersey. It's a big kind of a star spelled out with the A as an actual star and then a big D for Dallas on a nice, I don't know if it's quite victory green, but it's a shade of close to victory green, some white shoulder piping similar to the Flyers currently. This I gave a big hot on fire. And just love this jersey. This is a jersey I could see myself owning. I guess I'm a part-time Dallas Stars fan. I guess I would consider them my Western team if I had to pick, especially with Ben Bishop on there. Big hot for the Dallas Stars Winter Classic jerseys. But on the other hand, we've got the Nashville Predators Winter Classic jerseys. And they're kind of cool. I like that they went with the Dixie Flyers I think it was a Dixie Flyers kind of throwback cursive scripting or if you will, just spelling out Nashville Predators. That's a cool throwback looking cat or, predator or saber-toothed tiger or whatever the Predators are using as their mascot. But it looked better in game action. So when these were announced, I was kind of like, oh, come on. This is really what you came up with. You couldn't have come up with kind of like a faux throwback. But I think it looked good in game use, and they've used it as a third jersey now a few times after the Winter Classic at home. Still going to rate it as not hot. I think they could have no good. Had just a better design and really take advantage of your unique opportunity. Maybe the only time you ever play in the Winter Classic the next, 15 years, you could have had a better faux throwback jersey, Nashville. Now moving on to the Stadium Series. I'm really excited for these jerseys. Or we were excited. There were a couple leaks. First one we're looking at is the LA Kings jerseys. And I'm really torn on this. They've got the hanger collar's pretty cool. It looks like a checker design. Predominantly black and white. Essentially black and white, maybe a little bit of silver. I really like that they've got like a diagonal cut going across the jersey. And again, you're really doing yourself a disservice if you're not watching us on YouTube this time around. So make sure to find us at the Sports Heap as our YouTube channel, and you'll see all our videos there. Look for episode 10 of Thunderdome Puckcast. The LA jerseys, I'm going to go with not hot. No good. Not hot, but I think they look good from the back. But right now they have an LA with some kind of wind, like they're skating uphill. A little bit of like wind effects off the LA scripting. Half of the jersey is white, but it's kind of like a diagonal. I don't want to say it's a mess, but not my favorite. I think at first glance, like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then, when you're kind of forced to live with it, not hot. Last, and certainly not least, probably my favorite design, the Colorado Avalanche jersey. Absolutely off the wall, but they pulled it off. Of course, their trademark burgundy, white, and I don't know what color you'd call that. Kind of like a dark, not a dark blue, but that avalanche kind of interesting satin blue. I have to look up what color the Avalanche consider that blue they use. I love it that it sticks out. Bottom half of the jersey is all burgundy. Then they've got what looks like to be a throwback or a callback to the old Colorado Rockies logo with mountains in the distance, and then what looks like to be a giant A, and with the big white mountain. I mean, amazing. I think great job by the design. It's bold, it's crazy, and it's amazing. Gotta add this one to my jersey collection. Definitely a big hot for the Avalanche Stadium Series jerseys. So what's coming up next for the Lightning as we wrap up our show? We'll start off Monday against the Dallas Stars. Dallas, I think, sitting right now at 56 points, Bolts at 62. Always a interesting game when they go up to Dallas. Made it the last 2 or 3 years that they've been in town. Last year was a shutout. It was like a 2-0 shutout. Cadeau been playing in that one. And I forget who scored. I was sitting right behind it. Bolts took a 2-0 lead late in that game to secure victory. Then they'll head out west. You got the Anaheim Ducks and the LA Kings. And then also, I think right after that, San Jose Sharks in the upcoming week. So episode 11, we'll make sure to focus on the Stars, Ducks, and Kings games. We'll check in on the Pacific Division. We'll see if we have some NHL hot takes or hot or not. Depending on injuries, we might just do a general injury report and maybe some what's going on in the NHL. And of course, always getting you ready for the upcoming week. That's been it for your host, Moose, with episode 10 of the Thunderdome Puckcast. It's been fun. Good episode. Always love talking stats with you. Maybe we'll take a more in-depth look at stats next week, because I know we do a big focus on the Lightning performance in games, but I'm a stats junkie and a data junkie, and Hockey Reference has some great stats in terms of evaluating play level and performance and matchups for between teams. So it might be interesting to start diving into that a little bit more deeply. Don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter before I sign off. Right below there, @Moose_TSH is my Twitter handle. I'm pretty active on there, especially during NFL, NHL season. When I'm watching the Lightning game, I'm usually on there dropping GIFs or commentary. So feel free to follow us on Twitter to get the latest news. Don't forget to follow Emrod, my co-host on some of our other shows of the Sports Heap Network, and he's at Emrod_TSH. Thank you so much for listening to episode 10. We'll see you next week for episode 11 of the Thunderdome Puckcast. Go Lightning. Beat those Western teams. Have a great night.